What a wonderful group this is. I have just come here to learn a lot from all of you, and especially the wonderful gentleman for the first time I have met or I have heard. Friends, we're going to be having for the next 90 minutes from a very trusted leader in the entire leadership fraternity. Someone who's very down to earth, motivates right from the grassroots, has been active into social platforms, advisor to many business houses, startups. More than that, how many of you have rather viewed a TEDx in person or attended a TEDx program in person? Is there anyone here? 2, 3, 4. How many of you really watch those videos of TEDx? Excellent. All of us, most of us we do. He's someone who really organizes, someone who really brought TEDx to Hyderabad and this part of the country. Let me have the pleasure in welcoming a very dear friend of ours, Mr. Vivek Verma, a trainer par excellence, eloquent speaker, and I'm not going to be in between the topic that he's going to handle. Wish you all the best, and all I would seek, friends, a rapt attention. Good luck, Mr. Verma. Welcome to the Lions fraternity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those kind words, Sunil, and you. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure. You're getting it tonight, okay. So looking forward to it. Okay, good, good. So I know we've just taken a break. All of us went out, had a cup of coffee, came back. Some of us have kind of regained our alertness. But I'd like to start this session by a small exercise. You can continue to sit. You don't need to get up. But just follow what I'm saying. You take your left palm out, okay, and point it like this. From the right palm, just take one finger and not here, no. Try with 2 fingers. Slightly better. Try with 3. Okay, good. Try with 4. Yeah, it's getting better. Try with all 5. Thank you very much. You know, usually when I get introduced, that's the kind of reception I need. But since I didn't get one, I said I must get all of you to welcome me, because that's usually how I like to start my talk. So thank you. Thank you very much. What we're going to do is to spend the next maybe about 50 to 60 minutes running you through some slides and a small video I have. I was asked to come and talk to you all about being a platform speaker. And when Sunil called me, I said, if the audience that I hear are people who are FDI, about 20, 25 of you, I believe, are FDI. Is that correct? All of them. Okay. And LCIP, which is the senior of the two? I thought LCIP. So about 25 LCIP, I'm told, and everyone else is an FDI. So I really don't know what justice am I going to do to a learned group and experienced group who's sitting here. But what I am going to do is to bring some of the knowledge I have gained over the last 7 years as a TEDx curator and a licensee. And I also happen to be ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, which is the largest federation globally who certifies coaches. So I'm a professionally certified coach, a PCC, one amongst about 130 in the country today as certified PCCs. So I'm going to bring some of that experience from my PCC, ICF experience and a TEDx curator experience and share with you what I have learned over the last 7 or 8 years to be a platform speaker, to be a speaker, to be a presenter. All these are loose terms. We will understand that. I will share my experience, and then towards the end, I am happy to actually make it a more interactive session where we can address some of your concerns which may not have got addressed in the 50, 60 minutes of slides that we have. So with that, if I'm representing the TED and the TEDx brand, and I was so happy to see that there are 5, 6 of you who have physically attended a TEDx event, and almost 60 or 80%, almost 80% I saw of people who have listened to a TEDx talk. And I keep saying this, pardon my selling this a little bit. TEDx is a not-for-profit organization, so even when I'm selling it, there's no monetary benefit that I or anybody else is going to get out of it. But any topic under the sun, if you want to do a talk on, if you want to be speaking to an audience ever about, I think the first thing you could do is go to YouTube, type in your topic and just type TEDx. And I can say 9 out of 10 times you will get a TEDx talk which is available on YouTube today on the topic that you're going to speak. So that's the repository of talks that are available. I'm told currently there are over 1 billion TEDx talks which are available on YouTube. So these 1 billion talks are on various topics. And as they say, practice what you preach. And when I was told by Sunil that I have to come to talk to you people about platform speaking, about being a good speaker and a good presenter, guess what did I do as the first thing? I went to Google and I typed platform speaker, good speaker, TEDx, and I got a talk which I'm going to start my session with. So we will all watch a small 12 to 13 minute talk, not because I'm trying to prove a point that you can get a talk on any topic on TEDx, but because I think the speaker here is actually highlighting some wonderful points which we should take, and then we will follow that up with a few slides going forward. So let's start by listening to Phil, who is going to talk to us about being a good speaker.
Most people who come to speak at TED are here because they've succeeded. I'm here because I haven't. For the last 10 years, I have been helping conference speakers, business leaders, entrepreneurs to prepare and deliver.
Which is the audience, the speaker, and the transformation plan. And then towards the end, he talks about that through these presentations, what we are aiming to achieve or what we want to achieve is to change the way people feel, believe, and do, because that's when the transformation will happen. Just by information, just by us becoming aware without a real call to action, without when we walk out of this door, there's something that we are going to do differently because of the knowledge that we gain today is the key differentiation. And I think that's where the magic, so to say, lies. And I thought this is a good presentation, this is a good TED Talk to start our discussion, and I have put together a few slides that from our experience, like I said, at TEDx that we've been running, and for those of you who are already using TEDx videos, there are roughly 3,000 TEDx events that happen around the world every single year. Each event is anywhere between 6 to 12 to 13 talks. So you can imagine the number of videos that are getting uploaded, and the knowledge that I'm going to take the next 30, 40 minutes is coming out of that rich experience of what goes to make a good TED Talk, what goes to make the speaker's talk such that transformation happens in the world. Today, TED is believed to be one of the largest not-for-profit organizations around the world who can make a difference in the way transformation happens. To leave modesty aside, one of the things that is said amongst the leaders around the world, that if there is ever a World War III, the people who can actually prevent that to happen are the curators or the founders of TED, because they are that well connected with the global leaders. That's the level of dialogue that happens. There's a gentleman called Chris Anderson who owns the TED platform. So he is someone who's believed to be at that level. So this is an experience coming from that rich experience that we have. And we've put together some 9 tips, some of which may be a repetition from what Phil talked about, but we just thought we'll go into a little bit more detail about what these 9 tips are, which will make that transformation happen, which will transform each of us to become a better speaker. All of us are doing this for a living, almost. because we are talking, we are training, we are presenting, we are lobbying, we are trying to get somebody to agree to a new proposal that we have. So we are doing this, like Phil said, almost on a daily basis. But these are some tips which can make us do this slightly better. Like I said, TED Talks are usually popular around the world. They are available in 90 different languages around the world. They are in 145 different countries. So it's a very, very wide spread platform. And from that platform, here are things that you can take away for you to be able to talk like it is at a TED platform. And incidentally, there is a book available with the same name for any one of you who may be interested. It's called Talk Like TED, and it's available on Amazon and any other bookstore. So the 9 things that we are going to talk about, or I'm going to share with you from our TED experiences, unleash the master within. What it essentially means is, as we saw earlier, that speaker is a very, very important component. So your passion, your knowledge, your awareness, your experience, or as the slide says, your mastery, is something that needs to come out in what you're presenting. If you're presenting on a topic, let's say around water, and I know some of you in your districts maybe as one of the causes working towards that. Now, if your knowledge in that space is excellent, your experience around that is outstanding, how do you bring all of that to be relevant to the audience that you're talking about? And it must come through as people must start seeing you as the person who's at the foundation or at the background of what they are seeing on the slides or in the talks. It will come only when you are inspired yourself. And this is a very important point, because sometimes we get called to speak because we are good speakers. People recognize us as people who have the mastery in speaking. Sometimes we may not have the mastery in the subject. And I think this is where it takes an effort for us to go back and say, if I'm going to do justice to the topics, standing in front of 20 people or 130, 135 people like today, or maybe 1,000 or 3,000 people like we have at our TEDx events in Hyderabad, you need to be able to justify that you're standing here and you've done your homework. And I think that's a very, very important skill. We can't take for granted our ability on language control, on stage control, to overcome our knowledge on the topic that we are going to talk about. And we will be faced with such times, such situations quite often in our time. So my request, my suggestion is, if you already have the expertise, there's nothing that needs to be done additionally, because you will come and exhume that confidence, knowledge, mastery that you already have. But in case you do not, then this is a stage where you should take some time. And today, with Google at our service, this isn't a very difficult thing to do. If you spend a couple of hours before your presentation, before you put your slides together, I think it makes a difference. So that is the first important aspect, that you understand the topic and you bring your personal mastery in terms of being able to share the knowledge, share the experience. The second thing we talk about is usually talk about stories. Bring something which is about storytelling into the presentation. And we've specifically said 3 stories, because one story sometimes gets missed in the audience. But if you tell 2 or 3 stories, you are bringing your personal connect, and you are engaging with other person as a human being. It's not about me being a knowledge bank who's just coming here and reading out either from a textbook or from encyclopedia or from Wikipedia. It is about stories that are connected, stories that you have experienced yourself or you have heard from people you know, which are connected to the topic. This makes a massive difference in what happens in terms of the transformation that you're wanting to do. This is what stimulates and engages the audience to a very, very large extent. And like I said, they connect. Stories connect us as human beings, because then we are not seeing the speaker speaking here as someone who, as in Hindi they say, उसके दो सींग और एक पूंछ नहीं है, वो भी हमारे जैसा ही इंसान है. He or she is also a human being, and we can connect with the person because they are talking about real stories and not just knowledge and information which we can get elsewhere through. Again, one of the, in my 7-year experience, one of the flaws we've seen is that once we cross a certain critical mass or stage, we think that I can just wake up and speak, and it doesn't really need too much of an effort. While that may be true from your oratory skills, and this isn't an ego issue here to say, am I a good speaker or not? Sometimes the yardstick is that you expect me after 7 years, 20 years of doing this, you want me to really practice now? This is something I do like the back of my hand. And I can tell you, like I said, we run the TEDx Hyderabad platform. The best of the best come here and speak. But we follow a practice that no speaker can go on our stage to speak unless and until they have done minimum 5 rounds of practice with us. And let me tell you the profile of speakers we are talking about. Lieutenant General V.K. Singh, the the foreign minister of India. For those of you from local Hyderabad, Rana Daggubati, who's a film star, Tabu, who's a film star, multiple Padma Shris, Padma Vibhushan. These are people who we call to speak on our platform. Our events happen usually on a Sunday. Saturday is a full dress rehearsal. For those of you who remember school days, when we were participating in a play, the teachers called us the previous day and we had a rehearsal, dress rehearsal. TEDx platform, without exception, the good platforms have 100% rehearsal the previous day. The red dot is put, the light is switched on, the speaker is switched on, 50 critical audience is brought into the room, and the speaker has to go on stage and deliver the 18-minute talk without a mistake. If they don't, they go back again. We've had speakers who've done 5 rounds of practice sessions the previous day. The last event we had, General V.K. Singh was one of our speakers. He was campaigning for the elections at that time in Chennai. He said, I can reach here only by 9 o'clock in the night after my event. From 9 till 1:30, he did his practice. So I'm just saying that this is an effort we cannot miss out on. However much our knowledge may be, however much our experience must be, we cannot do this. And just to elaborate that point, one of a very, very popular talks on the TED platform is a talk by Dr. Jilly Bolte, which has reached 15 million views. In the TED family, we look at a popularity of talks by the number of views that talk has. 15 million views is a lot of views for somebody who's an authority in that topic. But do you know how many times the practice was done before this talk was given? Any guesses? 10 times, 100 times, 20 times. Any other number? 15. Here's the number. She rehearsed her presentation 200 times before she went and delivered the TED Talk. And that TED Talk today has 15 million views, and this is a slightly dated information. Today's view may be 16, 17, or maybe even more than that. Now, these are people who were selected to speak at TED, which means they are already an authority in the area that they are operating in. So this 200 times is the practice she did for the TED Talk. If you were to go back to her and ask her how many talks has she delivered or practiced and delivered, the number may be in a few million times. So it just goes to prove that we need to continue that humility and the humble nature that we need to practice. We need to practice. We need to be familiar with the circumstances where we are going to deliver. I need to be at the venue a little bit before to familiarize myself, because that's what is going to make the difference. And the practice is not just about you delivering the talk. It's also about using the audiovisual, using the hall, using the equipment that you have, comfort that you have with the lighting in the room, the comfort you have with the sound that you're going to use, all of this is part of the rehearsal that you should ideally do at least once, if not multiple times before you go to deliver them. Having said all of this, can we just go and take a canned presentation full of lot of information, pitch in a few stories, just aiding the information we have, and then let it be as is? Can I use the presentation which I used 2 years ago and continue to be able to kind of enthuse and engage the audience? Well, I'm sure the answer is no, and I'm sure all of you have done this, so you know this already. People are going to come back and say, "To matlab malum hai ab now, what's new?" What is it that you're bringing to the table today, which I didn't know in that transformation journey that we talked about? What's new? What's in it for me to take away from here is when you need to be able to bring some novelty. We are all humans with a human brain, and a human brain is always looking for something new. What do I take away from today's discussion, today's presentation, today's speaking session that I didn't know before? And what is it that you as a speaker can bring to the table to make that need satisfied is something that we need to work on in this. And this is a quote from one of the speakers again who talked about ocean exploration, that your mission in any presentation is to inform, educate, and inspire. The key word is inspire. Again, in that transformation, if you want somebody to feel, believe, and do, that inspiration needs to come. And that will only come when you give them a new way of looking at the world in which they live. So what can you bring in your slides which is new, which they did not know, or which they did not have any awareness of, is an important element. Now, how do I make the presentation, how do I do something here to become something that they look forward to, something that they are engaged in? How do I create these, what are called the jaw-dropping moments in my presentation? And that can be done by way of, bringing in some elements into your presentation which will elicit a very strong emotional response. How do I again connect at a human being level? So if I am again, let's say, talking about poverty, now how do I bring that emotion in you where you and me connect to that topic of poverty and not just about some information? I can have a slide which talks about the poverty levels in various states in the country. I'm not sure if that's going to elicit an emotional response. But a very powerful picture of a hungry child probably is going to bring that emotional jaw-dropping moment or story around that, that child, or a particular village or a particular incident you faced where you were able to do some transformation in your individual capacity or through your club or through your district, will bring that emotional connect and that jaw-dropping moment where people will connect and say, oh, this is something I've also felt. But here's something that you did with that feeling, and that made a difference. So that whole package becomes a jaw-dropping moment because you then connect so much more powerfully with the speaker there. The jaw-dropping moment grabs the listener's attention and is remembered for a long time. Like they say that most people don't remember the words they hear, but they remember the way they felt. And I'm sure you've all heard that as a cliche statement before. So how do we make the audience feel is more important than the words they heard from us? And if we can make that connect and make them go away having that feeling saying, oh, at that point I connected with the situation, with the speaker, and with the action that happened, then that will elicit a far more stronger change or shift in the belief system or in the doing that needs to happen for us post that. Again, cliche, but use the humor without telling a joke. Sometimes people think that the only way humor can be brought is when I need to bring an explicit joke. It's not necessary. You can bring the humor in a very, very subtle manner. We all started with some humor at the beginning of my presentation. There wasn't a joke. It was just something that we did, what we typically called as an ice-breaking moment, but brought some humor. All of you cheered, all of you had a happy moment to start that. So bring some humor like that without really getting into reciting some shairi or a joke or something like that, because that sometimes becomes very obvious. But when you bring in humor, you're again bringing out the human connect. All of these at some level are trying to bring out the fact that the speaker, besides being a knowledgeable person, quite often, unlike right now, where maybe you people are more knowledgeable than I am, but quite often is more knowledgeable, but you are trying to connect with the audience at a human level. They will only do something when they think you and them are at the same level. If you create a gap such that, you are way above, and you are supreme, you were born with some special skills, and I am not one of them, then you can't expect the transformation to happen, because the audience is going to go away saying, "Bhai, wo to kuch aur hi cheez hai, matlab humse nahi ho sakta ye." Now, what you want to do is that there's no difference. It's just probably that the person here has had specific experience in that area which you may not have, or has some specific knowledge in that area which you may not have, but otherwise at the end of the day is a human being. Is also same person who has emotions, who has feelings, who goes through ups and downs. So how do you bring all of that? One way is to bring humor without actually telling a joke. And this really lowers the defenses. People quite often, you will see, are sitting in an audience saying, "What are you going to tell me that I don't know?" And I know many people in this room today are far more senior, both in age and in experience, than I am. And if one of you do feel that, I'm sure you don't, otherwise you wouldn't be here in this room, because that's the attitude you bring. But if you are, or if there is someone who brings that attitude saying, "I know it all," then that's where the human connect is not going to happen. And you need to be able to make that connect to say, at the end of the day, this is where the defenses are lowered. Okay, let me listen to him. Whether I will gain something, whether I want to implement it or not is a second story. But the way you are speaking at least should elicit that from the audience, saying, "Acha, sun to lete hain. Kya, what is he saying? We'll see whether that is relevant for us or not." So if you bring in some humor, that helps to lower down that defense, lower down that "I know it all," or "What are you going to tell me," in a certain manner. It also makes you seem more likable. You are not coming here and saying, "I know it all, you don't know it all, and I'm going to tell you today." And when you walk out of here, while we said about transformation, but I can't take it to an extreme and say, "Aapko abhi tak kuch pata nahi tha, ab aapko sab kuch pata chal jayega. When I finish my talk, there is going to be a halo around your head, and then you will walk around with the halo because you got it from me." That again goes down, because you're really talking at a person-to-person level, and all you're saying is, "I'm sharing some learnings that I've had," rather than anything else. I'll give you a very classic example of this human connect. And pardon me, most of my examples will come from TEDx, because that's where I spend a lot of my time. We had this gentleman called Dharmai. He is the youngest, or not youngest, the world #1 para badminton player. He is a dwarf, and he is the world #1 in badminton. So we had called him to speak on our stage, and he delivered an outstanding 18-minute talk. And the audience was standing and cheering for him, and he started walking off the stage. And a TED stage usually, as you saw there, has a red dot. You're supposed to stand on that red dot and deliver the talk. He walked off the red dot, walked about 20 steps, turned around, and came back onto the red dot, and the audience suddenly felt, okay, what happened now? His talk was over, we cheered him, we loved it, what happened now? And he just came back and delivered one line, and he said, "You all saw the response, what a 3 feet person could deliver. I am only 3 feet tall. Each of you sitting in this room is at least 1.5 times, if not 2 times, my height. Imagine the potential each one of you has to go out and make a difference in the world. And all I want you to do is to promise me that you will go and do that." Now imagine the power. Imagine Everything else he had delivered, which people gave him a public standing ovation on. But that last line connected every one of the individual. There are many in the room who were then weeping and there were tears in their eyes because that's when the connect happened. कि अरे, मतलब essentially he is saying for those of you who understand Hindi कि मैं इतना सा होके इतना सब कुछ कर सकता हूँ, आप लोग तो बहुत बड़े-बड़े लोग बैठे हो यहाँ. And literally, figuratively, आप सब लोग बड़े-बड़े लोग बैठे हो, मैं तो छोटा सा, बौना हूँ, as they call in Hindi, a dwarf. So, how do you bring those elements which make you likable? At the end of it, in the lunch break, I can't tell you how that man was liked. He was like the star of lunch. People were willing to miss the lunch because they wanted a selfie with him or a few moments to talk to him. So how do you become that likable? How do you bring those elements into your talk? This is very specific to TED. You can customize this to what you need. Just for your information, TED has a rule, you cannot speak for more than 18 minutes. No TED talk you will see is more than 18 minutes. There have been, I think, 3 or 4 exceptions that were made, and if some of you have not watched one of those exceptions, I will tell you specifically, is to go and watch the Monica Lewinsky talk. I'm sure all of us know who she was, but quite often we will know her for the right reasons, or as I call, the wrong reasons. But go back and listen to her talk, where she talks about what's happening in the media space. And you quite often will find that your opinion of her would transform quite drastically, like it did for me. But the point I was making is, in her case, there was an exception made. I think she spoke for a little over 19 minutes, and there are 1 or 2 others, because in the curation process, it was recognized that 18 minutes is not doing justice to what she wants to deliver. But typically, it's 18 minutes, and again, many of us coming from the training background quite often find this very difficult to say, how do we speak in 18 minutes? And I can tell you, if you watch 10 TEDx talks, you will know that not only is it possible, actually it is very powerful if you do a compressed talk. In our platform, we also have 6-minute TEDx talks. So people come on stage and speak only for 6 minutes. And in 6 minutes, they can deliver an outstanding punch talk because it's been curated in that manner beforehand. And the key is the curation. So I call myself the curator for the TEDx Hyderabad platform. We curate, but we can curate our own talk. So it's not just about curating somebody else's talk, but what should be the elements in your talk, what should come in, where does the humor come in, and stuff like that. So it's important to stick to the 18-minute, because we believe that 18 minutes is the ideal length from the TED and the TEDx family. And it's because 18 minutes in our view, and that's Chris Anderson, who I talked about. He's the founder of TED as a movement. And his belief is that it's long enough to be serious and short enough to hold people's attention. So it's a combination of both, because you want people to be with you and you want them to take away something which is really meaningful. And that is a combination that an 18-minute talk typically brings. One question all of us have: should we have bullet points? Should we have tables? How much information? Our belief is we favor pictures over text. So as long as you have real powerful images, that is a far stronger method to use in a presentation than too many written points there. Because audience attention, you want the audience attention to be on you, because you are talking about what you want them to hear. So if everything you're going to talk about is on the slide, then the audience attention is to the slide and it's not with you. And they can read. Today everyone is intelligent, so if the PowerPoint presentation is circulated, they can read. They are here in the room because they want to connect with you as a speaker, with your experience, with your knowledge, with your connect, and all of that. For that, it's best to keep the slides to really convey strong, powerful images rather than having too much of data on that. And we believe that it's very easily possible. It's very easily possible to create images which correlate to what you're talking. So the audience sees the image but is listening to you and is not busy reading what's on the slide. And we'll see a slight difference of the slides. So what slides you're seeing now, and towards the later part of the presentation, I'll tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying in terms of pictures or the lack of it. Last but not the least is to stay in your lane. What does that mean? Is that the most inspiring speakers are open, authentic, and at all times vulnerable. Again, I talked about it earlier that I am not Mr. Know-it-all. All I am doing is sharing what I know, some of it which you may know, some of it you may not know. And not because I am more knowledgeable, because that's my area of work, that's what I do. And I'm sure there are many other areas where you do what you do, and I don't know shit about it, because I don't work in that space. So all that here we are talking about is the vulnerability. And vulnerability is also a very, very important point in our talks. You know, quite often we curate with our speakers to say, what's the one thing you have never talked to any audience anywhere in the world? And, you know, we are, as TEDx Hyderabad platform, known to have such a platform where people have come and talked about things which they have never ever talked in their life journey ever before. And they are glorified speakers from various parts of the world. You know, for example, we had a South African coach. She is a master coach based in Johannesburg, trains the CEOs of the who's who of the world. She came and gave a TEDx talk on our platform in 2015, where she talked about her transformation from being a drug addict to today being a PhD in mastery of the brain, in neurosciences, and how that journey happened. Everyone knew the neurosciences part of the story, but nobody knew that the journey started from her being a drug addict and how that transformation happened. Or many other such, many other stories. But if that vulnerability comes in, then again that difference between the speaker and the audience is completely broken. And he's saying, he's exactly like me. He's talking about being a human being. He goes through the same emotions, has the same feelings, has highs and lows, has been through bad times in his or her life. So vulnerability is very, very important. And I would overstretch on this point that wherever you are delivering a session, let the real you come out in some manner. Let people get to know you and not the trainer in you, not the governor in you, not the titles that you bring to the table. That are important. But let them also get to know the real you, the you who has a heart beating inside the chest, the you whose eyes also weep, the you who also feels the emotions and have been through that part in their life at some point. And the best way is to usually open up with a personal story. So if you're talking on a particular topic, if you can bring multiple things here, storytelling, vulnerability, your connect to that topic, all of that can be brought in if you bring a personal story right at the beginning. I work with a lot of startups, and usually my advice to startups is the problem you're trying to solve. How did it affect you? Where did you start thinking about that problem? Because everyone has a personal story. If someone is running a elderly care, healthcare platform, for example, 9 out of 10 times it will be because he or she experienced a problem with their parents or with their grandparents, and somebody passed away because they didn't get elderly care, they couldn't find it, and they felt that I need to make a difference, so I'm going to do it. Now that story, how can you bring that as an opening part in your presentation is when the audience will connect that, okay, that's where your passion comes from. And at the end of the day, your ability to sell your idea is the single greatest skill. You are here essentially as a salesperson to sell. A lot of times I hear resistance to that, saying, no, I am not a salesperson, I am a trainer. I am here to talk about a topic. And my perspective is, your topic is what you're selling. You want people in the room to buy that topic. That topic could be about best presentation skills. That topic could be around, audience transformation plan that we are talking about today. That topic could be about making a difference to the world, creating a vision. It could be about anything. But that's the topic you are selling and you want people to buy it. So you are selling at any point of time that you're making a presentation. And I think the single greatest skill is that how do I accept it and then operate and work towards that. So those were the 9 tips that we got from the TED platform in my experience, and these are very nicely available also in a book, like I said, Talk Like TED, for any one of you who you want to use. Another 2 things that I want to just touch upon is how do you use the stage? And I do see that square mark here, and on a TEDx platform there's usually a red dot. So that's a very useful thing to do. But there are 2 parts to what you're doing. This dot or this certain place to be marked is a very useful thing when the session is getting video recorded. Because while I can interact with the audience by walking around here, if I do this for an audience which is online, it's extremely disturbing. Because the camera usually will miss me every time. So suddenly the audience is going to see some words without a speaker. So it becomes a challenge. So if it's an audience which is purely having people in the room, I would very strongly suggest do not get stuck to one place. But if there is an online audience that you have and there is a video recording that is having, and your technician is not good enough to be able to capture you with your movement, then that's the right thing to do. But otherwise, so the slide here is that what people do wrong is to stand still in the middle of the, and I'm very glad that in your case you have very consciously created that space on the side. More often than not, most speakers will stand like this, and that's what I meant by in the middle of the stage. There's 2 problems that are happening here. One, you have lost connect with the slide, and more importantly, I have lost connect with all of you because I'm glaring at this light straight in my eye. So both of these, so the connection both ways is completely lost. I am not able to see any one of you or any of your faces, and you are not able to see me and the slide. And you're in your mind saying, thoda left ho jao, thoda right ho jao, I can't read. So there is a lot of interference that happens. So this is beautiful that you have created this, and which is how the TED platform teaches us to do that. You should be on one of the sides. So you are connected to the audience is connected to the slide. Usually there are also possibilities that you can have 3 slides on both sides too, so that the audience doesn't miss any of what's going on there. How to use this is make the full use of the stage. The stage is fully available to you. Walk around, I have a hand mic, otherwise use your arms, use your space that's available, because again, that's at a human level connecting and making a difference. And it also proves that you have a purpose and you are here to talk, so I will be emotional, and an emotional human being is never still. An emotional human being is going to be walking around. Go back to those days when you're on an emotional telephone call, and I can tell you your family in a while will come back and say, thoda ek jagah baith jao bhai. Why are you walking so much? Why are you moving around so much? Because that's your general state as a human being. When you get to that point, you will be moving, you will be walking around. So let that be there. So how do you use that stage? These are some techniques people use, that when they are walking on the stage, some people in their mind divide this and say the right side is the positive side, the left side is the negative side. So when in my storytelling, I'm talking about something positive, I will walk towards the right. And when I am talking about something where I learned a lesson where there was a negative, I will walk to the left. So you can create what you want to use, but use the stage available. You know the mental pattern, the audience doesn't know, but you have created that, and that just gives you a purpose and a method to the madness when you're on the stage. Like I said, you can split that into multiple stories. If you have powerful images, sometimes the images can run by itself, so you don't even need the slide projector, because the images are such that they connect to your talk. Sometimes people use 3 screens and have 3 different images. And those images are just images which people can connect. So again, you could choose that in those 3 images, one type of images will be on one screen, the other type of images will be on the other screen, the before and the after, or the good and the bad, or the negative and the positive. You could use any of that. So those were the 9 tips and how do you use the stage. And I think we will, in the next few minutes, just conclude by just putting some of these in summary. And this is where also I want you to now look at the slides a little bit critically. Okay, we looked at the slides about those 9 tips. They were slides of a particular nature. You know, let's go back here. You see these slides, you know, there is a picture, there is just a small message that exists there, and you read just that line and the rest of it is conveyed to you through the image. Now, as against that, in summary, we could also use slides which are of this nature. So in summary, preparation is very important. You need to know your audience, you need to know the material, you need to know what your strong points and weak points are. You know, you need to have a body language. So what is written here is easily readable. But the difference here is that these are slides which are content driven. Now, these are slides where the matter is very important, but what tends to happen and human nature is, because I took about 1 or 2 minutes to make this slide. You know, I typed the sentence, I searched that sentence, I become what I call a slave of the slide. And let me explain what I mean by saying I become a slave of the slide. Every word on this slide I must talk. So what I will do is I will be either stuck reading that slide, or if I have a slide in front of me, a teleprompter, I will be stuck in the teleprompter because I have to do justice to every word that's on the slide. Because if I don't do justice, then I somewhere feel, yaar, wo wala point maine dala tha slide mein, but I forgot to talk about it. Audience has read that point. You don't need to talk about it. So we don't need to become slaves of our slides. The key points from that slide is all that you need to talk about, and for that, you don't need to read every word on the slide. One is avoid to put those words, but if you do have to put the words, you don't need to read every word, you don't need to read every slide, you don't need to read every line. Key takeaways from each slide is what you need to know in your mind and say, that's what I want the audience to take away. The rest they can read, or when I circulate the presentation, it's available to them. They can refer to it in future. So speak with conviction, you know, unless and until you are there, you know, you are the person who's bringing that emotion through your experience, through your knowledge, it will come through. It will come through for the audience to know that, you know, this is kind of prepared, or, you know, this is not the area of passion. So how do you bring that is through your own mastery. And like I said already, do not read from notes, not just the slides. You will also see quite often people have long pages and, you know, so rehearsal I talked about. I want to clarify here that rehearsal does not mean you verbalize and remember and, you know, mug the whole speech. That I have to do a 10-minute talk. I have now mugged the whole 10 minutes. I'll stand in front of a mirror and deliver the 10-minute talk, word to word, full stop to full stop, comma to comma, pause to pause. That does not work. In the line of work we are in, that does not work. If you are a politician and you're going to a political rally, or you're going to the United Nations to deliver a message from a country, maybe it may work. And we can argue that in my view, even there it won't work. But you need to just get the high level flow of what you want to talk about. Even if you do want to have notes, all you can do is, though I didn't make it, but I just wanted you to know, on a piece of paper, you can make the bullet points and say, these are the 6 broad areas that I want to cover, and I want to roughly cover 3 minutes of each. And that's how my 18 minutes are. So I just keep that here. So it's there in my mind saying 6 points, 3 minutes each. So I now know I can structure myself and make sure I move to the next point and the next point and next point. But rehearsal does not mean word-to-word mugging of the talk. And I'm sure most of you don't do it, but I just think it's important to emphasize that do not read from notes. Your connect to the audience goes away. When you are connected to your paper, your audience connect goes away. Maintain eye contact. How do we do it with 300 people in the room? Quick question many of you will have. 3 seconds per person, one at a time, 20 people in the room, you've established connects with all 3,000 people in the room. Human beings are built that way, and again, these are cliche, most of us know, but it becomes very important that even in a dark room where you can only see the first row or maybe the second row, just find those friendly eyes or the friendly face. It will just give you the confidence you need, and surprisingly, it will make you connect even with that gentleman or lady who's sitting in the last row who you can't see at all, or who can't see you that clearly on stage, is largely watching you on the screen. But that audience connect will happen because you've established eye connect with a few people. Speak to your audience, connect to them, find a method to do some Q&A, which we will do in a few minutes from now. Pause. Pause is as important a tool as the speech that you make. And again, for many of you, this may be old information, but how do you modulate your voice? How do you raise your pitch where required? How do you lower it where required? And how do you just take a pause and let people reflect on what you just told them? Especially when you're talking about emotion, when you're talking about sentiment, you need to give people some time to process the emotion. Because if they don't process the emotion, it's not an emotion. It's just a statement you made. So pause, as you just saw in the way I was talking, is as important an element that you let the audience process, because there's too much information, feeling, emotion that you're giving out. If you don't give them the time to process that, you've lost them, because while you're talking on the next line, they're still processing in their mind that emotion that you asked them to experience. And then that disconnect starts to widen. So pause and add humor, I think we talked about. The last slide here is, sometimes should we use slides? Should we not use slides? Should we have handouts? And most importantly, know when to stop. When is it time that, for example, my watch tells me it's time to stop so that we have 20 minutes to really do some kind of an interactive session, because it's 1:10 now and we have time till 1:30. So like that, you need to know. If it's an 18-minute talk, then you need to find a method at the 17th minute to start winding up, to say, okay, I have just a little bit of time remaining. And if you are somebody who's not very conscious about it, find a method to build that. Have someone with you who starts giving you indications. For example, again in the TED platform, what we experience is we put a timer. So that timer does the reverse count from 18 minutes down. So at the 17th minute, the color of that screen turns to red. And it starts to tell you that, okay, you've got 1 more minute, so start winding up. Some people are not comfortable with that. We actually have a person somewhere in the room standing. And at the 17th minute, that person starts to walk towards the speaker. So somebody is standing in the corner and he starts walking in. So visually I can see and say, oh, okay, the person is walking now, so it's 1 minute. And if he's reached this point, then it's half a minute. So I can start calibrating. This is if you are not comfortable with using the watch. But if you are, then that's the best way. Take out your watch and keep it so you know when you can kind of close the talk and stop. Handouts, very useful tool. And I'm sure all of you use, especially from a training perspective, a very, very useful tool. But for something like this, may not be very useful. At best, your soft copy of the presentation can be circulated, and it's available with you, so you can feel free to circulate both the video and the talk. But be clear again around that, so that people know that I will get a copy of this, so I don't need to spend too much time. Of course, in today's world, it's become very easy, like I saw most of you doing, just take a picture, and the information is available. But at some places, you may not have the luxury to do it, but inform the people. And in conclusion, at the end of the day, it's about you connecting to the audience. It's all about that connect. It's not about the mastery of the knowledge that you bring. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying without mastery you can go and deliver because you have human connect. I'm not saying that. But just the mastery alone is not enough if we can't do the second part. because going back to what Phil talked about, the belief, the do, and the feeling is only going to come from there. The knowledge may come out of the knowledge that I share, but that's not what we want to do. We want to do an audience transformation plan. For that, the feel, the belief, and the do is very, very important. So that's my last slide. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be available if any of you do want me to come in. And at this stage, like I said, I think we still have 15, 16 minutes, so we can take some audience questions about some either clarification or some questions any one of you may have. Everyone can hear me.
Whom do you invite the persons to speak at the TEDx platform?
Okay, thank you. Very, very important question. So it goes through a 3-step process. So every year we decide a theme for our event. So depending on what is the most natural topic that we need to talk about in the current circumstances. For example, we are likely to do an event in January, coming January. The theme isn't decided, but it is going to be around change makers who have done phenomenal work in the world in the last 2 years, because this has been a never experienced experience for any one of us in the world. So theme is the first point. Within the theme, we then go around saying which areas do we want speakers from. So do we want a sports person, we want an economist, we want a science person, we want a college student, we want a lady speaker, we want a LGBTQ speaker. So we then decide the areas in which we want the speakers from. Then we do a research in that area. So if energy is an example that we want somebody to come and talk about alternate energy sources, given all of us are so hassled with the 105 rupees and the 110 rupees that we are all experiencing, what's the world going to be? Where is the new energy source going to be? Is it solar? Is it hydro? Is it, what do you call these windmills? So which is the place? So then within that area, we will go and look for speakers. And at TEDx, the tagline is ideas worth sharing. So a lot of times we get requests from what people call themselves as motivational speakers, quote unquote. So within the TED family, if you see in that email motivational speakers, it straight goes to spam. We don't look at those profiles at all because it's about idea. When I say it goes to the spam, somebody will respond and say, okay, we went through your profile, but we want to know what's the idea you want to talk about. Because this platform is about ideas worth sharing. This platform is not about motivational speakers coming and motivating. Now, mind you, each talk is motivating. So there is motivation that will happen for sure. But the topic of the talk can't be motivation. The topic of the talk is what you bring to the table by way of an idea. And thereafter, we start working with the speakers. So the 4th stage is we, at least at TEDx Hyderabad, spend 3 months in curating the talk. So when General Singh came and spoke on the platform, I flew to Delhi twice to work with him on the practice sessions in his office in the North Block. So 2 months, 3 months, we curate the topic. And in the curation, all of what we talked about comes in. What personal story do you want to bring? Where do you want to bring the humor? Where do you want to bring pictures which are very powerful? All of this comes through the curation process. But everyone doesn't have the luxury of 3 months. We do an event once a year, which is 3,000 attendees strong. So we take this effort to do it. But typically, that's the process TED follows. There are people who are called curators, and their job is to topic, subtopic, speakers, and then curation of the talk within that speaker. And then the practice sessions. The next question.
Compliments for excellent motivation and inspiration for us as a trainer. My question is, why this magical figure of 18 minutes you have decided? I mean, how you feel that variety of subjects can be covered in 18 minutes? Particular reason?
Actually, I must say we stand corrected now. In the virtual world, that time now is between 9 and 11 minutes. Because the span of attention has actually gone down. And we experience it ourselves. We sit in front of a screen. So in the last 2 years, most of the TED Talks have also gone virtual.
So in the virtual world, we say that 9 to 11 minutes is the right time. There is a lot of research that happened. It is, like we said, we think that less than 18 minutes or 11 minutes in a virtual platform, less than that is not enough for you to do enough justice to that idea that you're talking about. But we think it's enough to hold the audience attention, that we don't lose the audience. Because the moment you lose the audience, it's not just that person that you lost. That person, when they are lost, will start doing something. Either will go to the phone, will start drawing, will start talking to the person sitting next. So then the disruption in the auditorium starts. So we think that that is, like you saw that statement from Chris Anderson, that is what we feel based on research is enough time to convey your message, but less than enough for you to lose the audience. So you don't lose the audience. And I know a lot of times we struggle with that is it possible? And that's where I say the best example to see is watch 10 of the TED Talks and you'll see 14 minutes, 15 minutes, 16 minutes, people have delivered outstanding punch in the talk. The talk we saw today, how many minutes do you think was that?